Welcome to the Fantasy Flex Week 10 podcast. This is our main slate podcast presented by Prize Picks. I am your host, Chris Raybon, joined as always by my dude, Sean Kerner. Sean, how's it going?
What a week, what a day, what a past hour. But how are you doing? You had the Steelers money line last night, right? How are you feeling today?
That was one of the most miserable sweats I've ever had. I mean, these last few primetime games, I know we were both on that Michael Carter under, and he hit by like a yard, but it was just a miserable sweat. They were running him when they should have been throwing. And then yesterday, I mean, he had got all this help from the refs, and the Steelers still almost blew the game. Came down to a last-second field goal. That I don't know what was the deal with that doink? Because I heard a doink on air, and then they showed a replay, and it was like 10 yards short. Was there like a doink sound effect or something?
No, I
like,
thought
what happened?
Did it bounce and then hit the crossbar?
Maybe, I don't know. Like all I know is that it was like 10 yards short upon like looking at it again.
I thought it hit a. Were you watching the Nickelodeon feed or something where they made like a splat noise? No. I didn't hear a doink. I thought I saw it hit the crossbar.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what they called it. Like, I think Weedy said like, "Oh, doink" or something. And then like a lot of people were tweeting doink, and then like they showed a replay and it wasn't even close. So then I don't know what happened, but yeah, that was
that's crazy though.
All right, let's get into our Thursday night football preview, and then we'll get into our positional previews for the main slate. We have the Miami Dolphins. We have the Baltimore Ravens. The one thing I think to keep in mind for this one is Baltimore could be very tired. I mean, they played 98 offensive snaps against the Minnesota Vikings. So that's, could be some wonky things going on here. But nonetheless, who do you like in the captain spot for this Thursday night game between the Ravens and Dolphins?
Yeah, you really can't go wrong with any of these Ravens players like Lamar Jackson, Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews. So I think they'll be pretty chalky. So I'm going with Jalen Waddle as my captain. He's been tearing up man coverage. Ravens play a ton of man coverage. So I think this is a good spot for him. He's been getting a ton of high percentage throws as well. He's been getting like 10 catches for 6-yard type of games. But this could be a spot where he blows up because the Ravens have had some tackling issues. So I think he could get a couple of huge yak plays here. So I love Waddle's talent. I think he's going to be overlooked here in the captain spot specifically. So I like Waddle as a sneaky captain play.
Yeah, I like that as well. I like both tight ends in this game too. I think Mike Gesicki can have success. We've seen Baltimore struggle against some of these tight ends that are more like wide receivers. Waller, Kelsey had big games. Baltimore is 22nd in DVOA against tight ends. According to Football Outsiders, they've given up the highest amount of schedule adjusted receiving yards per game on a weekly basis, 79.7 to opposing tight ends. And then Miami has given up the third most at 77.8 schedule adjusted receiving yards per game. So I think this is a bounce back for Andrews. Miami does play a lot of man coverage, which Andrews has been the go-to guy over Brown in this spot. So I think, Brown is pretty much a lock for a big game almost every week now. So I'm going to have some exposure to him. But I think all of the top receivers in this one are worth it. And obviously some Lamar Jackson as well. What about for your DFS cheat codes?
Well, on the Ravens side specifically, I think Rashad Bateman is the cheat code here. He has a ton of upside, even if Sammy Watkins plays. Kind of hoping Sammy Watkins suits up, so Bateman's rostership maybe takes a hit here. But his routes run per dropback spiked up to 81% last week. I think it's only going to go up. I mean, he's a rookie coming off an injury, so they've been ramping him up. So I like him in the second half of the season. And then Nick Boyle, I think, is sneaky because he's coming off the IR. He could, catch 2 passes here and, get a touchdown. So he's one of those kind of like touchdown vulture plays, I think could be sneaky here. And, he might be overlooked because, like I said, he's coming off the IR. He hasn't played at all this year. So like him. I think for the Dolphin side, Matt Collins is sneaky just because, it looks like Preston Williams will return. But either way, I think Matt Collins should see a ton of playing time. He had 83% routes run last week. And caught 3 balls for 22 yards and a touchdown. So he's the type of guy where you would never play him on a main slate, but when it comes to a showdown slate, he's the kind of guy that I like to play. Like I said, for last night's game, a Marquise Goodwin or a James Washington type, both of them caught deep passes, and that's pretty much all they did. But they were, they hit value in the one game showdown. So I like Matt Collins to get a couple passes here and he could score a touchdown as well. So I think he's a good cheat code play for the Dolphins.
Yeah, I think Howlands has kind of took over that number 2 outside receiver role with everyone kind of banged up. Parker. I did hear some news that Brian Flores has kind of predetermined that Preston Williams will be active this week after he was a healthy scratch. So when he's been on the field and active, he has had substantial playing time. He's run a route on 46% of the dropbacks overall. So he's another guy, you getting him at min priced. I think he could do some things. He's one of the more talented receivers on that Dolphins team. I think Patrick Laird, if this game gets out of hand, is an interesting guy who could catch like 4 or 5 passes out of the backfield. He might be that, passing down back late in like garbage time. He's been on the field, as that third back, these first couple of games he's been active. So I think he's another guy worth at min price. And the fullback Patrick Ricard, he's a little pricey. He's like up to 1K on DraftKings showdowns, but he's a guy who could catch 4 or 5 passes. He could get some goal line vulture action going. So with this Ravens team where, they played so many snaps, their running back rotation is kind of hard to decipher. I think Ricard, it's always nice to get a guy who could potentially just throw off the entire slate with like a vulture touchdown or something like that near the goal line. He could even catch one. So I like him as well.
He did catch a touchdown last week, and he saw 40% routes run per drop back last week. I mean, that's like the Kyle Juszczyk role. So yeah, he's a great play as well. I guess I misspoke when I said Nick Boyle would be the vulture here. It's probably going to be Patrick Ricard.
And for the Monday showdown slate preview on our pod, on our waiver pod, I mentioned that, hey, Steelers Bears, that was like a kicker. You might want to actually roster the kicker. And it looked like the winning lineup on DK had both kickers. This might be another one of those kind of games. You have Justin Tucker, you have Jason Sanders, you have a Ravens team that is favored to win, but could just be a little bit exhausted, frankly, after playing so many snaps. And now you're going on the short week. So 2 good kickers in this game, might be a little closer than people think. The spread is 7.5 in favor of the Ravens. So maybe worth kind of going some contrarian kicker lineups, some defense lineups as well. Thursday night, always kind of sloppy. So some of those guys I wouldn't overlook in this kind of matchup. All right, let's get into our quarterbacks. Sean, who is your top 5 for week number 10?
So I have Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Tom Brady, Justin Herbert, and Patrick Mahomes.
Ooh, Mahomes made it, huh? All right.
Barely.
I have Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Tom Brady, Dak Prescott, and Mahomes. Still going Jackson. Oh, let me say it again. 3, 2, 1. Still going Allen number 1. I thought, I think he's played sloppy and the offense has played sloppy the last couple of weeks, but I trust him to get it together against this Jets team. Remember, they couldn't stop the Colts for like the first 40 minutes of that game on last Thursday night. So I trust the Bills to kind of get it together here. And then Lamar, he's kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum where he's been playing great, but short week, a lot of snaps last week. I just think it could be a little bit of a slowdown game for him. So I'll keep Allen number 1. And then Tom Brady, I mean, I've been projected for well over 300 yards, coming off the bye, been stewing on a loss. His numbers against the spread are just insane when you look at, after a loss, he's 41-15 against the spread, 73% since 2003, according to our Action Labs data. Nearly as good against the spread loss. On the road, coming off a loss, he's 21-6 against the spread, 78%. So all that means is that, the Bucs are 9.5-point favorites. The total's 51. That means the Bucs are implied to score 30.5 points. They might beat that like by a touchdown or 2. They might put up a 40 piece in this game. So love Brady in that number 3 spot. And then I expect to bounce back from Dak. The total is rising in that Falcons game. And then Mahomes, really, it just comes down to that cover 3 for me and Gus Bradley. They play a lot of single high, and that hasn't really been how you beat the Chiefs. You play 2 safeties back, you dare them to run. Will Gus Bradley alter the scheme that he's pretty much known for, that cover 3 single high safety look against Patrick Mahomes? Maybe, but that hasn't really been something we've seen him do much of, this year. So I think Mahomes is still in a good spot to crush. What about for your DFS cheat codes? Do you like?
So as always, I like Jalen Hurts at 6,500. I just think his ceiling is way too high to be 6,500 for GPPs. even cash games. His rushing ability gives him a high floor and ceiling combo. So just I always think Jalen Hurts is underpriced every single week, including this one. In fact, in his 14 starts, he's averaged 215 passing yards a game. My question to you is, how many times has he finished between 200 and 300 yards
2
in those 14 starts? What would be your first guess?
5.
Wrong. It's 2. So yeah, and he's thrown for over 325 yards 4 times. So yeah, it goes to show his wide range of outcomes, where he rarely has just a mediocre game passing. So I'm tapping in his upside here, and he always produces on the ground. So love his ceiling here as always. And then Tyler Heineke at 5,400. This is just potential blow up spot for him against a pass funnel defense. Should be a pass heavy game script. As we've said, Tom Brady will probably go off this week. And Heineke has rushing upside that I love, getting a quarterback under 5,500. So love him as well. And he could be getting Logan Thomas and or Curtis Samuel back this week. And you've mentioned that you like Heineke a lot more if he has more than Terry McLaurin to throw to. So getting one of those two guys back will be huge for him as well. And then I'll be monitoring Jordan Love at 5,100. I'm assuming Aaron Rodgers should return this week, but if he isn't able to, Jordan Love, I'll sprinkle some in at 5,100. He had kind of a brutal debut, but that was a tough spot, making his debut at Arrowhead of all places. So, he'll have a home game here against the Seahawks defense, could bounce back. So he'd be a really good cheap play at 5,100 if he does get the start.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he might, because Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah.
he told us he was
Who the hell
vaccinated, but he really was immunized. And now he's saying, like, hey, I might miss the game. Like, I kind of perk up when I hear that. I like the quarterback on the other side of that, Russell Wilson being cleared, to come back and start here as a road underdog. He's 21-11, 66%, and he's covered by 3.9 points per game, so nearly 4 points per game. So I think this Seattle offense is still being a little bit underrated in the market at this point. And Russell Wilson at 6,700, that's a great price for a guy that can put up elite numbers. And that Packer D, they're they're outside the top 20 in DVOA against number 1 and number 2 wide receivers. So that's that's great news for stacking Wilson with his 2 top options, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. You're also coming off the bye, so you've had extra time to prepare for this Packers defense that's kind of banged up in the secondary. So like Russ, like Dak Prescott to bounce back against this Falcons D that's 28th in DVOA against the pass. Falcons D is not going to give the Cowboys as much problems running the ball. They're not going to give them as much problems in terms of man-to-man coverage the way the Broncos did. So just a completely different matchup. I think you bet on the bounce back for Dak at 6,900. And I already talked about Brady, but I still think in that top tier, I think he's worth playing this week, even though he doesn't have rushing upside, because just coming off the bye, going against a shaky Washington secondary, I just think he's going to have a massive, massive game.
With you on that one.
All right. Who is our prop for quarterback?
Let's go with Patrick Mahomes, total passing yards against the Raiders. I have inside information on this one, on where you're going to go, but I will keep the line at 276.5. Are you going over under that? He's only cleared that once or twice the past 7. I think it's twice, 2 times the past 7 games. Is he going over it here?
Yeah, he's going over.
Yeah.
I got him closer to 300. But again, I think you have to kind of treat betting and forecasting and DFS kind of the way that, offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators treat scheming against the other team. Like, you have to kind of test Gus Bradley and say, will you abandon your single high safety cover 3 looks and give Patrick Mahomes more, 2 deep safety, dare him to run the ball type of looks? That really just hasn't been something Bradley has done. You have a low spread of 2.5 in favor of the Chiefs. You have a high total up at 52. So I think this is a spot where, could be a close, high scoring game. I mean, the last couple of weeks, Giants and Packers. So those are 2 teams that you don't need to really put up a lot of points against. Now, yards against. Now, Buffalo was concerning. He put up 272. So he's close to the line. And then Tennessee was just a disaster game that you just kind of got to, that was where everything really just, hit the fan. He played only 3/4 of the snaps in that one. So you got to kind of throw that out. I mean, I think he's due. I think he's due for a bounce back, even if it is kind of on more dinking and dunking. I still think, against the zone defense, I think they're going to be able to move the ball. All right, let's go to running back. Who are your top 5 at running back this week?
Jonathan Taylor, number 1 again for me this week. Najee Harris, Austin Eckler, Dalvin Cook, and then Alvin Kamara.
I got Dalvin, and Dalvin. Top 5. I mean, this is the smash spot. Chargers run defense. I mean, they brought Jordan Howard back to life last week. I just think this Charger run defense is not very good. They're 32nd in DVOA, dead last. They're 9th against the pass, so it's a funnel. Dalvin Cook's receiving usage has been going up in terms of his routes run per dropback. For the last 5-6 games, it's been increasing every week. He was up to 57% last week. He usually gets 80-90% of the carry. So love him at number 1. Taylor number 2. The only thing with Taylor is the Jags have been number 2 in the league at limiting explosive runs. Now that's Jonathan Taylor's MO. He'll probably get 1 or 2 anyway. I know Derrick Henry went off against them, but I still think just because of they're pretty similar in my numbers. So going with the guy with the better matchup here. Then Alvin Kamara, Najee, and Austin Eckler at number 5 for me.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with either Jonathan Taylor or Dalvin Cook, so it's probably not even worth arguing over.
All right, so who do you like for your top plays, your DFS cheat code guys you're higher on than the consensus?
I'm going with Jonathan Taylor at 8,100. I'll let you have Dalvin Cook at 8K, who obviously is a great play, but I just love Jonathan Taylor in this spot. He just usually eats against terrible defenses, especially at home. And he hasn't had his full offensive line until just a couple weeks ago. So, I'm not surprised that he's starting to tear it up. Marlon Mack was a healthy scratch. So I think Jonathan Taylor has a massive floor and ceiling here. So love Jonathan Taylor, 8,100. I also love Javonte Williams at 5K. I feel bad because I finally hopped off the train last week because I didn't like the matchup. Garrett Bowles is out. Typically the Broncos abandoned the run in trailing game scripts. They were 10-point underdogs against the Cowboys. I didn't think they were going to blow out Dallas. So Javonte Williams went off. And I kind of like getting Javonte Williams in this price range when Melvin Gordon is healthy, because Javonte Williams is so talented. He doesn't really need that many touches to put up big stats. So I think, if and when Melvin Gordon were to miss time, Javonte Williams will be a no-brainer play. He'll be 7,500. And he'll be good, obviously, but I think it's sneaky to get him when Melvin Gordon is healthy and they're splitting touches, because he's too talented to be 5K. So love him this week. And then, got a couple of guys at 4,700 that could become free square plays this week in Devin Singletary. Zach Moss is in the concussion protocol. So if he misses this week, Singletary will have a big game against the Jets. And then Dearness Johnson, Nick Chubb was placed on the COVID list. He's vaccinated, I guess. So there's a chance he could return this week. But, also Demetric Felton got placed on the COVID list. Even John Kelly's on there. So Dearness Johnson could be the only running back the Browns have. And he's already proven that he can put up good numbers in that spot this year. So going to love him at 4,700 if Nick Chubb is out as well.
Yeah, I mean, they signed Brian Hill, so it's trending towards guys missing the game. That's kind of, as we record this early Tuesday afternoon, we're seeing a lot of news is kind of coming in here. So talk about free squares. Alvin Kamara got banged up in that Saints in the last Saints game, and the Saints are reportedly working out some backs here. So Mark Ingram may be a free square at 4,500. Wow. There's like internal reports that there is some worry about Kamara's availability for this week. So that's something to monitor as well here for the Saints. I think you look at another team that might have some injuries. The Patriots. Brandon Bolden could be a great play at 4,400. Harris and Stevenson left the last game. Not sure if it's a concussion protocol, but both of them were listed with head injuries. So I'm assuming it's something along those lines, but that's another guy to monitor. Love Singletary and Williams. Cordell Patterson, I think you got to keep playing him. He's an RB1 at this point. He's only 6,600 still on DraftKings. He's their best skill player at this point. I mean, he's been playing even better than Kyle Pitts. Pitts has had some drops and things like that. Obviously, Pitts is the more talented guy, but remember, Patterson was no joke. That's why he lasted in the league this long. very talented guy. Just no
First round
team
talent.
no one ever knew
Yeah.
how to use him. So Arthur Smith has unlocked that. So love him. And James Conner at 6,400. He's going to be the workhorse for this Cardinal team. You still have, even if the receivers and Kyler are healthy, I mean, it's kind of guys are out of sorts, missed time. You don't know how the COVID is going to affect the wide receivers. You don't know exactly how good Hopkins' hamstring is going to be. So I think they lean on Connor yet again. So like him as well at 6,400.
Love Connor as well.
Yep.
And that's why he is our player prop we need to discuss, because
Okay.
this is actually up on Prize Picks right now. I'm in line with it. So I'm projecting him for 69 rushing yards.
Nice.
Right now their prop, nice. Right now their prop is 69.5. And I thought I might have been a bit too low. Are you over or under that?
I'm actually a little under. I'm at 64. I have him 15 carries for 64 yards and 3 catches for another 22. So have him for 18 touches. Benjamin for about 6 touches. So Connor getting about 75%. I think Benjamin earned about a 25% or so backfield share. I mean, he had that awesome truck stick against San Fran last week, and I think he mixes in. Like he's my RB 45 and Connor's my RB 10. So I'll go just under this one. But I do like Connor this week. I just think that number is, obviously, somewhat to do with the recency bias and the hype of what happened last week.
Yeah, and I think he'll be more involved in the passing game as well. So I think he's going to have a great game. But yeah, his rushing yard prop might be a bit too high, but I'm just too scared to,
Right.
to take the under after watching him last week. He looked possessed. So, I mean, he, like you've said, he's a talented running back. I think he got bagged on heading into the season. You and I were both saying he and Chase Edmonds were probably being underdrafted just because even when they're both healthy, they're probably going to, be ADP. But if either one goes down, they're going to become a high-end RB2. Either one could be a high-end RB2. And that's James Conner this week with Edmonds out of the lineup. So yeah, I love James Conner this week in DFS.
All right, let's go to wide receiver. Who you got in your top 5 for week number 10?
So I have Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, number 3, assuming Aaron Rodgers plays. Then Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, with Deebo Samuel 0.1 away from the top 5. So he's almost there. He's not quite there yet for me, but he's almost there.
That's interesting. I have Jefferson all the way down at 10. I mean, I still have him 6 for 82, but I do have Deebo ahead of him. And my top 5 is Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, again, like you said, assuming Rodgers plays. If he doesn't, he will be outside the top 5. Tyreek Hill, Chris Godwin, and Mike Evans. And these are assuming Antonio Brown is out, which he's been in a walking boot. So I have Brady projected for well over 300 yards. Godwin and Evans are clearly those top 2 targets. Looks like Gronk's going to be out again too. Bruce Arians did not express optimism about either of Rob Gronkowski or Antonio Brown making a return despite coming off the bye. So Godwin and Evans right there, and then Deebo right after those guys. So it's a pretty loaded week, I think, this week. But monitor, obviously our rankings at actionnetwork.com and our projections, for where Adams ends up, because that's going to be heavily dependent on what happens with Aaron Rodgers. All right, who do we like for our DFS cheat codes? Guys, we're just higher on than the consensus in fantasy.
So, I mean, obviously I like Jonathan Taylor this week. I think he's going to go off, but I also like Michael Pittman at 6,300 against the Jaguars. The second half, it might be the Jonathan Taylor show, but certainly the first half, Carson Wentz and Michael Pittman could go off. And if it hasn't been clear by now, it should be clear that we're in the middle of a Michael Pittman year 2 breakout. I remember you called him heading into his rookie year last year, and it took a while for him to kind of hit his potential, but it's there. And we finally started seeing his touchdown upside. I think it was like week 5. He hadn't scored a touchdown yet. I was saying he profiles as a touchdown scorer. So ever since then he's gone off and he's been scoring touchdowns. So love him at 6,300. I think his rostership might be lower just because people assume, his ceiling might be capped against the Jaguars, but either way, I'm still jamming him in there at 6,300. I love Jerry Jeudy at 5,300 this week. This is the price point I've been able to get T Higgins the past few weeks. So I'm pivoting to Jerry Jeudy here. He's been eating up zone coverage this year and his rookie season. So this is a good matchup for him against the Eagles. And his playing time, he's been held back. His routes run per drop back have been around 78% his first 2 games back from injury. That should approach 90% going forward. So I think his ceiling is a little bit higher than people think. And then some of the cheaper guys I love is Deontay Harris at 4K against the Titans. He's the kind of guy where just anytime he's on the field, he's going to see targets. So he came back from injury. The Saints have been kind of easing him in at 45% routes run per drop back his first 2 games back. But if that spikes up to anywhere around 60 to 70% routes run, I mean, he could post 6+ catches easily. So he's kind of a guy that's too cheap considering DK's a full PPR site. So love him. And then just one more week of Tyler Johnson, I think, at near min price with Antonio Brown likely out again this week. He should be the number 3 wide receiver for Tom Brady. And, I love Tyler Johnson. I think he's one of the more talented year 2 players that often gets overlooked. And Scotty Miller could return, but I think, they're going to ease him in. So just like getting Tyler Johnson at near min price, especially since we're both pretty high on Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay passing offense this week.
Yeah, Tom Brady's pretty good. So
yeah,
we need a lot of exposure to him, which means we need a lot of exposure to his pass catchers, especially, not just the expensive ones in Evans and Godwin's, who are, by the way, pretty good values, top 5 guys for me. So their values are great, but also some of the cheaper guys to kind of round out those stacks. For me, I like DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, kind of the same deal. I think you get to buy low on them because you've had all these starts with Geno Smith. Now you get Russell Wilson back. Green Bay, according to Football Outsiders, is number 24 in DVOA against number 1 wideouts and number 27 against number 2 wideouts. So this could be a big game. Remember, they're coming off the bye. They've had time to kind of get this thing right. And Seattle's going to regress upward in terms of just their offensive play volume. They've been averaging in the mid 50s in plays per game. They just, their offense just hasn't been on the field due to a variety of factors. Sometimes it's just been big plays. Sometimes it's been, things happening on defense, special teams, but I expect them to have more plays and Metcalf and Lockett to put up really good numbers. I have them both right around 80 yards projected receiving for this week. Julio Jones, another guy we haven't got a chance to talk about much because he's always been nursing a hamstring injury. Looks like he's off the injury report. He played 87%, ran a route, on 87% of the dropbacks a week ago. This is a good matchup for him, I think, against the Saints. He's familiar with them. You don't run on the Saints. You don't have Derrick Henry, so you're probably definitely not going to run on the Saints. Could be a sneaky 10-target game for Julio and A.J. Brown, together each. So I like Julio at 5,400. And the Titans just released Josh Reynolds. I guess, they scratched him for his revenge game and then just dropped him. So, I mean, Eesh, Tennessee. I guess they're going forward with Westbrook Akina and Marcus Johnson.
Chester Rogers. Yeah.
Every year I'm just like, how is Chester Rogers on a roster? And then he's like the starting slot for Tennessee somehow. But props to him. Get that bag, Chester Rogers.
Get that money, Chester.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Oh man, I could see myself betting on a Chester Rogers under 2 before the year's over.
Careful. He took a big hit last week. We'll see.
Yeah.
I think he came back in the game, but he took a shot in the back last week.
Well, either way, all the more reason to like Julio Jones here. And then, so that's the other guy that I really like. Right along with Judy. I was just gonna mention I've been banging the drum on this Eagles defense playing so much zone. Obligatory shout out to Tim Patrick, but he's been like their least kind of like their third guy against zone. Judy and Sutton have been a little more involved there. So Patrick's just been really good. So I'm not sleeping on him anymore. I think I only have him like 3 spots below Judy, but I think you want to look at him too. But Judy, this matchup just sets up really well for Jerry Judy. So I like that call a lot. Where are we going with the prop?
So how you and Samantha have your weekly check-in on Mike Davis?
Yeah.
We're having our weekly check-in on Brandon Ayuk. So let's go with the Ayuk prop here. I have his receiving yards at 42.5. Are you going over or under that?
I will go just under. I have him at 40. And a lot of that is due to, obviously, I'm, very high on Deebo Samuel. I have him over 80 yards. I have George Kittle, near 60 at 58. So I do have Ayuk projected to run, 93% of the routes this week. He's been in that mid 90s range the last 2 weeks. So he's my wide receiver 43 on the week, higher than he's been in a while. I think he's borderline startable, in 12 team leagues as that wide receiver 3 or flex, if you need it. But I like Ayuk to have a kind of stay relevant now. I think you get to buy low on him if he's still on your waiver wire. He was a wide receiver 2 coming into the season in terms of draft capital, and just really disappointing start. But I think we can we're getting there. We're getting there with Ayuk. How are you? What are you feeling about Ayuk heading into this week?
Yeah, I think I'm buying Ayuk right now. It was a couple weeks ago. I think week 8. He broke season highs in like routes run, snaps, everything. So he's the kind of guy that we know he has wide receiver 2 potential. And he had a bit of a bear market there week 1 through 7. And I need to go back and track, like he might be like syncing up with Bitcoin's price or something. He kind of reminds me of Bitcoin. It's been a total bear market on him. And now that Bitcoin's starting to break out, so is Ayuk. And if I think back to last year, it was like, I need to chart this out, but I might be onto something. But
technical analysis from
is
Kerner
the fantasy
here.
Football version of Bitcoin. So buy right now.
Yeah. Oh, was that an NSYNC reference? Did you just like what?
No, that would be back. Yeah, different buy.
Bye. Yeah.
Sorry, I was never a big boy band fan, but
yeah, I mean, me either. But, I mean, it's hard to avoid that. And like growing up watching like TRL, I would watch TRL. Not gonna lie, but also Mohamed Sanu is out. Like he got hurt.
Oh, your boy.
Yeah, right. So the other guys that are threatening Ayuk for routes are Jawan Jennings, Trent Sherfield, Textbook Trent, and Travis Benjamin. So
yikes.
This is it's a good spot. Sneaky good spot for Brandon Ayuk here.
Yeah.
Let's go to tight end. Who's your top 5 for this week?
Kelsey, Waller, Pitts, Andrews, and welcome back to the top 5, George Kittle.
You're gonna love mine. So I have the same top 4, but number 5 over Kittle.
What?
And this is in my, this is like early week. So, but this is what my model's saying. Dalton Schultz over George Kittle, because Dalton Schultz played 95% of the snaps, ran a route on 91% of the dropbacks last week. And this Dallas Atlanta total is at 54.5. Listen, it's just a volume play. Kittle, I mean, I have him running his normal routes, but remember, Kittle runs routes in like the 70s and 80s in terms of per dropback. He's a great blocker. Whereas Dalton Schultz, I mean, he's with Jarwin out, he just essentially became an every down route runner for Dak Prescott. So maybe I flip flop him, but I'm really high on Dalton Schultz this week. So
I can't argue there. I can't argue there, and I probably need to get a Schultz jersey after this week, because I had over 3.5 receptions at -170. I ate a ton of juice to get this, and he had 1 catch heading into the final drive, down like 30 points or whatever, and he got 3 passes in a row. I think either way, he ended with 4 catches, barely cleared the number. So obviously ever since I faded Dalton Schultz in, what was it, week 3, I become a Dalton Schultz stan. So yeah, I can't fault you for having him in your top 5.
Yeah, I mean, good. Yeah, that's good thing he got over that. I mean, it's hard to get catches when Malik Turner's just gobbling everything up.
What the hell is that? Oh man, that was week 9 in a nutshell.
Yeah, Malik Turner and Olamide Zaccheaus, 4 combined touchdowns.
And Josh Johnson being the QB 3, I think.
Yeah.
Didn't even start, and he still finished top 3.
And Josh Allen outscoring Josh Allen.
Yes, and IDP. Yeah.
Yes, Josh Allen.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, just nuts. That's like I know this is not a tight end specific question, but like, how concerned are you of like a letdown spot for the Colts with like, because the Jaguars, it's not just like the Bills had a bad day. Like the Jaguars did kind of switch their scheme up, and they've been playing more zone, and Urban Meyer's even talked about it, and it's really helped them, because they said they came into the year wanting to be a man team, and now that they've kind of switched it up, they seem to be getting some things together. So like, is that going to kind of play into any of your DFS like tournament usage if like let's say Taylor and Pittman are like some of the highest projected rostered? Because I think they will be, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, Carson Wentz is a walking letdown spot, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes.
But maybe the Jaguars just put all they had in that game, and if the Colts decide to just lean on Jonathan Taylor, I don't know if there's going to be anything wrong with that. So I think that does help the Colts out here. But I can't say anything is a done deal with Carson Wentz under center. So I'll still have a ton. Whoops. I'll still have a ton of Jonathan Taylor, so you can't convince me off of that. But yeah, like if the Jaguars make it a game, I won't be surprised.
I'm actually pretty good at convincing Taylors. I convinced Chad to go against your prop and take Tyrod Taylor on Convince Me, which then it wasn't my prop, it was Simon's prop, but then it lost anyway. So
yeah, anything involving Tyrod Taylor lost last week. He could have just grabbed one of our tight end unders that hit with ease, I would say. Both hit by about 14 yards with room to spare. So yeah, should have convinced him just to take one of ours.
Yeah, Convince Me is 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, Sunday morning, our live show. Sean, I, and Simon Hunter do our favorite side total and prop. We try to convince Chad Millman of which one to take. Samantha Pravidi's on with some fantasy news. Ravella's on. So good show. Check it out if you haven't. But who you like at tight end? Cheat codes, guys you're higher on, getting consensus.
So this is the obligatory Dan Arnold mention at 3,500 against the Colts. Not sure what more I can even say about him at this point. This kind of reminds me of early in the season when I was just saying, just play Dawson Knox and let's see what happens. At this point, we know who Dan Arnold is. He's 5 catches for 50 yards, maybe a touchdown. Can't beat that at 3,500, especially with Travis Kelce and Darren Waller aren't on this main slate. So I think this is the time to kind of spend down at tight end. So you could also go with Tyler Conklin at 3,400. The Chargers have given up a ton of points to tight ends this year. They rank fifth most allowed fantasy points to tight ends this year. Conklin's been, sneaky consistent. I think he has a pretty high floor for a tight end that you can get for sub 3,500. And then it's worth mentioning my boy Hayden Hurst at $2,800 against the Cowboys. This could be a shootout, so getting a guy like Hurst could be sneaky. And Kyle Pitts is essentially a wide receiver now in this offense, so Hayden Hurst has been seeing a ton of playing time, consistently running around 60 to 65% of the time. Last week it dropped down to 38%. I don't really know why that was. Could have been a matchup thing, but I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps back up in the 60% range. And obviously very talented tight end, could have a big game, and just way too cheap. So I think he's worth a flyer in GPPs.
Yeah, and some leverage off Pitts, especially, maybe even Patterson, although I don't think anyone can stop the Cordell Patterson train.
Don't leverage off leverage into Patterson.
Yes. Right. Yeah, I like that. I mean, for me, the guys I had written down, Dan Arnold and Dalton Schultz, and we've kind of talked about those guys. One other tandem I'll throw out there are the Bucs tight ends, Cameron Brate and OJ Howard. It looks like Gronk is going to be out again. Arians did not express optimism that he was going to play. So you have this Washington team giving up the second most schedule adjusted receiving yards per game to tight ends. You get leverage off Godwin, Evans, even your boy Johnson, or you could play Johnson in one of the tight ends, and you kind of get some unique lineups with Tom Brady, who should be pretty chalky. So I think you got to get exposure to all these Bucs receivers this week. Take the value with AB and Gronk likely out. So Brate, Howard, they're kind of splitting reps, but tight ends for the Bucs combined have seen 27% of their red zone targets. So you could kind of mix and match there, or make similar lineups and swap in just Brate and Howard, kind of a 1-for-1 thing. But pretty good shot. You get at least one touchdown if you have exposure to those guys. So like those guys as well. All right, who's our prop for tight end?
Pat Freiermuth, total receiving yards this week against the Lions. Obviously I'm very bullish on him, but my projection seems low right now. So wondering where you're at, but I have it at 35.5 receiving yards. Are you over under that? And how do you envision this game going? The Steelers are 9-point favorites. Should they be favored that much? And does Eric Ebron's potential return mean anything to you?
I've won betting the Steelers the last couple of weeks, but it's been such a miserable sweat. So I don't even want to state any Steelers predictions. I just want to take a break. After last night, I just want to take a break from Steelers. But I will say this: I think you're too low on Freiermuth. And this is more of a kind of a gut feel call, but I think Freiermuth's role stays the same even when Ebron comes back at this point. I mean, he's essentially won the game 2 weeks in a row, which is some of his, the way he's playing in the red zone for the Steelers. Ebron had done absolutely nothing. So I think Ebron at this point is just going to be battling Zach Gentry for snaps, and he might not even win out because Gentry's the better blocker. And if you've noticed, Steelers have gone to more man blocking. That's why you've been so high on Najee these last few weeks. They've been gone to a more man heavy blocking scheme, get a hat on a hat. And there's really no place for Ebron in this offense if Freiermuth is playing well at tight end and Gentry is a better blocker. So I wouldn't worry about him. I have Freiermuth about 4 for 39, 4 catches, 39 yards. He's my tight end 12. And if Ebron is ruled out, that will probably bump up a little more into like the 4.5 for about 45 projection range with about close to a half a touchdown too. Like I have him at 0.43 right now. So he could probably get up to about 0.5 with another half catch or so. So yeah, well, I'm high on Freiermuth. That's another guy I meant to mention. Even if Ebron comes back, it might actually be better because it might lower his ownership. Well, fuck.
Here it comes.
Please cut that, producer. 3, 2, 1. If Ebron is back, it may actually lower Freiermuth's rostership percentage. So I think that he's just talented. I mean, they talked about on the telecast last night that Bruce Arians actually texted Roethlisberger. They used to coordinate him. He said when they drafted Freiermuth, they said, "Hey, you got a good one. You got a Steelers tight end. That's shades of Heath Miller right here." And you're seeing it just kind of. I mean, talk about a breakout. It's just happening before our eyes. So yeah.
Yeah, I was saying the past few weeks in my tiers, I've been saying, invest in Freiermuth. I guess he's like an altcoin off of Brandon Ayuk. But I was saying like if it weren't for Kyle Pitts in this draft class, we'd be talking about Freiermuth like long before this because he was a second round talent. Very, talented pass catcher. If you go watch back his college film, really good pass catcher. He's called Baby Gronk for a reason. But I just think Kyle Pitts is so good that it's overshadowed a guy like Freiermuth. So yeah, I'm not surprised to see him break out. That's why I thought my projection for him is a little bit too low. So thanks for knocking some sense into me. I'll bump him up closer to 40 after we hop off.
Yeah, and you also, I mean, it's early in the week, so we don't know, but Claypool got banged up. So if he's out, Freiermuth could be like that number 2 or at worst the number 3 target if you because Najee's obviously gonna get his 5.
Yeah, and he's seen these spikes in like targets and stuff ever since Juju went down. So that could be playing into it as well as Ebron's pretty obvious. But I think Juju being out of the lineup could be what kind of fueled this to begin with.
Yeah, this is one where you don't even need the numbers. If you've been watching the Steelers games, Pat Freiermuth is a beast. Like like it's just
at this point
obvious.
The cat's out of the bag.
Right. Yeah. All right, that's going to wrap it up for our positional breakdowns. Now let's get into our lineup building exercises. We like to build a tournament lineup early in the week on DraftKings and FanDuel. Now, keep in mind, this is early in the week. There's a lot of injury news, free squares we might not know, but we're trying to go tournament. So we're trying to go with a little more contrarian anyway. So shouldn't matter too much, but we'll see how it goes. Obviously, you can check out our content later in the week, our rankings, our projections at actionnetwork.com. I do a big article on Saturday where I break down, what I'm doing for cash games on each site. And Sean has his updated tiers late in the week. So, if you want, more updated information, obviously check that out. But and our Fantasy Labs models will have all our up-to-date projections, and those tend to crush each and every week. So check those out. But let's do our thing here. Let's build a DK lineup first. I think. Wait, who went first last week? Was it?
I think you did.
On DK. All right, so you can go first and you can pick the flex, and then I'll do the same for FanDuel.
Let's kick it off with Tom Brady.
Let's lock in our boy Mike Evans at 6,900. I like that nice little 31st ranking for Washington here. And don't be afraid if you want to go with even more Tampa pass catchers. I won't be mad, but gonna lock in Mike Evans at a nice price of 6,900.
Love it. Okay, well, I'm going to complete a 3-way stack here, and I'm going to force in OJ Howard right off the bat, assuming Gronk is out. I just love Howard's upside at 2,700. I just having Mike Evans score the touchdowns, Howard have a big yardage game, sort of a leverage play off of Chris Godwin, which I don't love, but this is GPP, so we got to shoot for the moon.
All right, so we got Tom Brady, we got Mike Evans, we got OJ Howard, we got an average of 54.66 for our remaining 6 players. I'll get a defense going for us to so you don't have to do it. Let's see. Who do we like here at defense?
Titans are cheap.
It's funny. I was just thinking that. I really like how physical they're playing on defense, and they are starting to get more pressure. You know what? And Kamara may be out. Let's go Titans. Let's go Titans. 2,600.
Yeah. Love it.
Too bad we can't stack him with Derrick Henry in like a super contrarian,
yeah,
tough matchup spot.
Don't get me started on Adrian Peterson either.
No, please don't. No. Oh, veto.
All right. God, should I be the one to force in the 8K running back that we're arguing over? No, I'll pass on that.
Hey, no, do what you want to do. I mean,
let's see,
man. This is why we go back and forth.
Yeah, maybe we take them both here. I think we have enough money. Force them in there. Jonathan Taylor, baby, 8,100. We'll figure it out later.
All right, so we have Brady, Taylor, Evans, Howard, the Titans. We do have a 55-25 remaining for 4 players. So I'll look at another wide receiver, and let's go. I still like Julio, even though we have the Titans D. It's not exactly correlated, but it give us some differentiation. I just think Julio's too cheap here, and he's 1 week he's off the injury report against an old division rival. I'm taking him at 54.
Yeah, I wrote him up as a buy low and season long last week, just because people that have him at this point are just get him off my team. And he has upside. I mean, he was off the injury report last week, so knock on wood. He's back to 100%. So love that play. Love the upside. Let's see. So we have 5,500 per player.
55-66.
God, would love to force in Tyler Johnson here, but that's too much.
It might not be. It's Tom Brady.
I like my Deontay Harris cheat code at 4K.
Okay.
I like spending down on him again for a full PPR site. Like, but he's going against our defense. Do you mind that?
No, because that could actually help.
Garbage time.
Yeah, and just like if the defense scores a touchdown or something, that. And we have Julio, so we have some correlation.
Yeah. It would not surprise me if he gets 8 catches here. Like, he's that kind of guy. Just the playing time hasn't been there, but that could certainly go up.
All right, I'm going Cordell Patterson then, because we can't go Galvin Cook. So I'll go Cordero.
Okay. Can't go wrong with Cordero. Can't go wrong with him.
So I'll leave you at 6,100 from the flex. If I went Dalvin, I would be leaving you with only like 4,500. I feel like
I could work with whatever you give me, man.
Yeah, I got you. But let's go balance here. It's a tournament.
Yeah,
this is the spot where you kind of want to avoid going too much studs and scrubs. I think in tournaments it helps to kind of go with a bunch of those mid range.
So. Yeah, so 6,100. Oh, I just missed out on James Conner. Shit.
Yeah. But he's gonna be chalky though, so he's
totally fine. Jerry Jeudy, we'd have a shit ton of money left over. Oh no, I don't want to do the double tight end again this week. Yep, can't do that. Not many options.
Michael Carter, but that's a really tough match.
Really tough spot.
Yeah,
but
Manny Sanders and Marvin Jones kind of under the radar. Kyle Pitts under the radar. Devontae Smith against man coverage.
We have Cordell Patterson though, so
yeah,
that might not.
I think Marvin and Manny are Fournette. Well, no, because you don't want to go Fournette with
Jerry
Brady.
Jeudy would leave like $700 on the table. You like that?
I'm actually
where I have him ranked. He should be like 6,500.
Yeah.
So
let's do it.
Yeah.
Or you know what we can do? We could go back and just change our defense too, since we got Julio. And,
you know what? Let's give ourselves. So let me lock in Jeudy.
Yeah, and then I'll change
and then pick a defense that makes more sense. Not that I love the Titans. They might be pretty chalky just because they're so cheap. So yeah, let's try to get leverage with our defense here. So anybody stand out, or any team stands out?
Let's go with it's an odd defensive split. I mean, I think the defenses at the top are all the best ones, the Steelers, both Cards, Colts, and Bucks, but those are the ones we can't afford. Let's go with
Pats are 3,400. What if every running back for Cleveland's rolled out?
Oh, I know where we're going. We're gonna get the Cordero correlation with the Cowboys defense. Cordero in a catch-up game script.
Oh, there we go. Love
because
it.
Trevon Diggs, he's got to come back. And the
Yeah.
Cowboys defense is they're turnover centric, right? So they had 4 sacks last week, but no turnovers. They will. This is a high total game. I mean, part of that scoring could be the Cowboys D. So yeah, let's hope the Cowboys D takes a possession away from the offense, and then we just get more Cordell Patterson. You got some correlation going with that.
Ends up being a lower scoring game. Like it's not a game you want to stack necessarily, but CPAT certainly has a good game. Love it.
Yeah, and we got it leaves us with 400 left over, which is perfect. I usually like to leave more than just like 0 or 100 left over. So all right, Tom Brady 7,600, Jonathan Taylor at running back 8,100, Cordero at running back 6,600. Then we have Evans at 6,900 at wide receiver, Julio at 5,400 at wide receiver, Deontay Harris at 4K at wide receiver, and Jerry Jeudy in the flex, a wide receiver as well, 5,300. OJ Howard stacked with Brady for our tight end at just 2,700, and the Cowboys D at 3K. That should be a reasonably, it's got some differentiation going there. All right, let's jump to FanDuel. I'll start us off here. And we didn't do it in the other lineup, so we got to start with Dalvin Cook here. I'm starting with an 8,500 at running back. Got to get him in somewhere.
Okay. I'll let you kick off the quarterback on this one too. For FanDuel pricing, this Javonte Williams is an even better play on FanDuel. It's half PPR, so I like him even more here. So let's go Javonte. I don't want to miss out on him again this week.
Yeah, I like that. That's
back on the Javonte train.
All right, let's keep it going here. Let's see, who do we want at quarterback? Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll get the correlation really in the high gear. Let's go Justin Herbert at quarterback against the Vikings defense that played 98 snaps last week. There we go. So we got Herbert, we got Cook. So 8K for Herbert, 85 for Cook, and 5,800 for Javonte Williams. So we have all 3 of our wide receiver spots, tight end, flex, defense.
Who do we want to stack them with? That's the question.
I mean, they said Mike Williams might have a sneaky injury, like he might be a little banged up with his knee. I know he's a better FanDuel play, so I don't know. It's up to you. I know you're kind of the Mike Williams whisperer, so it's got to be either Williams or Allen.
Well, I think Allen is the better play, but yeah, it's a half point PPR site. So, I just watching Charger games, I know he's going to throw a touchdown to Steven Anderson and Donald Parham again. Like, he's really tough to stack. So I'll probably avoid making that decision quite yet. I'll let you do that. Let's go with Terry McLaurin. Yeah, there's not much to say. I just think he's in a good spot here. They might get Logan Thomas or Curtis Samuel back this week, but I still think this is a good sneaky spot for McLaurin. I think he's going to be under the radar. And on FanDuel, I think he gets a little bit of a bump and a half PPR. Love his upside here, so going to go with McLaurin.
So let's go with Mike Williams, because remember, Minnesota is going to be without Smith at safety. So I like the potential for some coverage bust, which we know that's how Mike Williams eats. He gets those coverage busts deep downfield. So it's got to be contrarian, right? So let's go Mike Williams at 6,900. Like the McLaurin call, that's, I think he's going to be a potential 10 catch guy just given the game script. So we have 59.25 for wide receiver, tight end, flex, defense.
Yeah, I guess I'll go with the defense here. Let me just check. Titans defense, it's pretty cheap on FanDuel as well. Let's do that. This lineup certainly jiving better with that. Right. So let's go with the Titans defense.
All right. Let's see. Who do we want? So we have Titans defense is 4,100. We have 6,533 left over for wide receiver, tight end, and flex. Let's see. Oh, I'll go with my boy Dalton Schultz at tight end.
No, I was gonna pick that. Yeah,
All right.
that's the pricing is kind of flat. So like a guy like Hayden Hurst is 4,800 and Schultz is 6K. So yeah, I like getting one of these like more expensive guys, and Schultz and like Goddard kind of
Yeah.
stand out as the best plays on FanDuel. So love getting some Schultz here.
All right. So we got 6,800 wide receiver and a flex. So I guess, yeah, you can choose a wide receiver and I'll go flex.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's see. So probably gonna go down a bit here. Ooh, love Jerry Judy there. Yeah, it looks like this 6K range is pretty good. Let's go with Manny Sanders at 6,300.
Nice. Buy
Just
low.
love his ceiling and face adjust. It should be, bounce back game for this entire offense. So like getting Manny Sanders.
And by routes run, he's their wide receiver one. I mean, he's running more routes than Stephon Diggs these days, which is interesting.
Yep.
All right. Sanders at 6,300. So we have 7,300 for a flex. Let's see. Our top options, if we want to spend every dollar, would be Amari Cooper, DeAndre Swift. Also have Keenan Allen.
Connor at 7K.
Mike Pittman. Ooh, Connor at 7K. Thielen at well, this is FanDuel, and we got to go Adam Thielen. We got to go Adam Thielen. It's FanDuel. Touchdowns.
Touchdowns.
Like touchdowns. Like Adam Thielen is a walking touchdown.
Yeah.
But I mean, Connor's going to be a little more chalky, so we'll just go Thielen because we have Herbert and Cook, so we could get like 4 touchdowns out of 2 each out of Cook and Thielen. So yeah, I'm gonna do it that way. But yeah, I think Connor would be like the cash game option, like if you were looking for a guy.
Totally.
But yeah, let's try to get all of the Viking touchdowns and hope Herbert isn't a shootout on the other end.
And, leverage play against I think Justin Jefferson will have a big game, but 2
of the 3.
This would go against that. Yeah.
2 of the top 3 Vikings with Herbert at quarterback correlating with Mike Williams. We're just betting on a shootout in Minnesota Chargers essentially. So
exactly.
We have Justin Herbert at 8K at quarterback, Dalvin Cook at 8,500 at running back with Javonte Williams at 5,800. Our wide receivers are Mike Williams stacked with Herbert at 6,900, Manny Sanders at 6,300, Terry McLaurin at 7,100, and then Adam Thielen getting some more exposure to this game at 7K with Dalton Schultz at 6K at tight end and the Titans at 4,100 going against the New Orleans Saints. Let me enter that. Boom. All right. That is going to wrap it up for our lineup building segment of our Fantasy Flex DFS main slate podcast for week number 10. And that's going to wrap it for us. You can find Sean on Twitter at @the_oddsmaker. You can find me on Twitter at Chris Raybon. You can find us by those same handles in the free award-winning Action Network app, where you can follow all of our bets, including our player prop bets, as well as track yours for free. Be sure to check out actionnetwork.com for our fantasy football content, projections, and rankings, and fantasylabs.com for our DFS content, tools, and models. Until next time, let's get this money. All right, Prize Picks, and then we can fucking drink.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got through the next pod in almost under an hour. So like,
yeah, Matt Mitchell's gonna be like, "This is your best one yet. What the hell happened?"
Yeah. All right.
I feel like our first one was way better.
We were riffing
corners.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to cut some corners here, and
same.
Like I don't like repeating myself, but that was my bad as well. Like,
yeah, no, I mean I should have. I just like. Yeah, I was like hyped. I was like, yeah, let's if we get this done, we can go out and drink. And then I was like,
we would be having a drink right now.
Right now. All right, let's go. All right, 3, 2, 1. Next up here on the Fantasy Flex is a segment we call Elite Entries, where Sean and I dive into the Prize Picks app and compare our player projections to the props to build some entries. We'll do 2 each for this show. Sean, start us off with your first Prize Pick Elite entry for week number 10.
I'm going with Trevor Siemian under 220 passing yards against the Titans. This should be a run heavy game script for the Saints. He didn't look great last weekend. We have to monitor Alvin Kamara's injury, but either way, they have Mark Ingram now, so they can lean on him. But this could be a spot where they use Taysom Hill a lot more. And whenever you have a quarterback who you can't even project to take every snap under center. They have a really low floor in the passing yard market. So again, he could play every snap and I still could see him going under this, but just given that we don't know, how much playing time he's going to get, how much playing time Taysom Hill's going to get, there's just too much uncertainty. So, I like the under in situations like that. So give me the under 220.5 passing yards for Trevor Siemian.
Yeah, this might be a smash under because the threat of an in-game benching, even if he does start, is up there. So love it. For my first prize pick elite entry for week 10, I'm going Dalvin Cook over 85.5 rushing yards. He's facing the last ranked Chargers defense in terms of run DVOA. Cook's median in his last 5 games is 110 rushing yards. I have him projected for 105 median against the Chargers. He's averaging 92.3 on the year. So all of the metrics kind of point toward, even in a normal matchup, Cook is a good shot at clearing this number against the Chargers. I think it's just a smash with this worst run defense. So over 85.5 rushing yards for Dalvin Cook. All right, Sean, where are you going for your second prize pick elite entry for week 10?
So I'm also going with an elite running back to go over 85.5 rushing yards this week, and that's Jonathan Taylor at home against the Jaguars. Just take Jonathan Taylor over whatever his rushing yard prop is against bad teams. So he ran for 145 yards against the Texans at home, and then he ran for 172 yards against the Jets at home last week, and now he gets the Jaguars at home. And he just got his offensive line back healthy. So it's been 2 games now. He's had the starting 5 offensive linemen ready to go. So, I think this is a smash spot for him. Yes, the Jaguars run defense might have been a little bit better than we anticipated going in this year, but either way, Jonathan Taylor is going to tear it up. Love his over 85.5 rushing yards as well.
Yeah, I think Cook and Taylor, top two running backs for this week. I'm going to close it out with Donovan Peoples-Jones under 45.5 receiving yards against the New England Patriots. You never want to take these kind of ancillary receivers against Bill Belichick defenses. We've seen that over the last few weeks. But Peoples-Jones has had 39 or fewer yards in 4 of his 7 games. I'm projecting him for just 35 yards. Just because Odell Beckham is not on the team doesn't mean Peoples-Jones' production is going to change drastically. His usage pretty much stayed the same with Odell in or out of the lineup. Anthony Schwartz also seeing an uptick. So Donovan Peoples-Jones, doubt he does much against this Belichick defense. Under 45.5 receiving yards for him. All right, that's going to wrap it up for our prize picks elite entry segment for early week 10. As a recap, Sean is going Trevor Siemian under 220.5 passing yards and Jonathan Taylor over 85.5 rushing yards. And I am going with Dalvin Cook over 85.5 rushing yards and Donovan Peoples-Jones under 45.5 receiving yards. As a reminder, prize picks markets do move, so you want to get on it fast in order to lock in the best numbers. If you haven't created a prize picks account yet, check out the link in our episode description and they will match your first deposit up to $100. Or you can visit prizepicks.com and use the promo code ACTION10. That's ACTION10.